Monday, the 3rd of March, 2025, and this evening's show, the pilot light of playoff hope is finally blown out as a 12-point gap now opens up as Blackpool once again cannot hold on to a half-time lead and succumb to a late winner against Stockport at Edley Park. A result which ends our unbeaten run and probably our season in early March. I'm John Osmond. This is Seaside's podcast match reaction show. Stockport 2, Blackpool 1. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Seaside's podcast on a Monday evening. On the panel this evening is Nick and Mitch. Tim unfortunately can't make it. Thoughts out to Tim and all his family. So a family issue going on there. So all the best to Tim. Mitch, thanks for coming off the bench. A great blog as always. The highlight for me was your description of Stockport being a mixture of Burnley and Oldley Edge. The old and the new money combining, yeah.
I haven't been to, I was saying before I came on, I haven't been to Stockport for years. I don't think I've been to Stockport since the 1990s. And the ground hasn't changed at all, but I thought it was quite an interesting town. It was, I think I wrote in my blog about, it had a fair share of hipsters, but we also saw somebody on an electric bike with the coppers after them being arrested. So it was a bit of a mixed bag of a town, which I quite like.
I think Tim would describe it as kitsch or some word like that. But yeah,
I agree. There's some interesting, like you say, there's some modern places, and then some kind of old traditional places. We went in the pub. It was actually a home fans pub before the game, but the guy on the door was dead sound, and got chatting to some of the Blackpool fans in there. And then just thinking, should we have another pint? And Tim announced he'd lost his ticket. I think he's pulled a tenner out of his pocket. His ticket's fallen on the floor, and unfortunately, whoever's found it, because he was a Stockport fan, you're not going to think they'd want to use it. So we don't know quite what happened, but it wasn't handed in at the bar, so we were panicking a little bit. But shout out to Smarty at Blackpool Police, because we wandered towards the ground, saw him, and he mentioned it, and he managed to get him in. So all was good in the end.
If he's not nearly running out of battery on the way to the game, he's losing his ticket, isn't he?
Well, he said it's the first time he'd ever done it. But yeah, we managed to. I said, knowing you, Tim, I said, if anyone's going to get in the ground without a ticket, it's you. So I'm surprised you didn't end up in corporate.
Took the words out of my mouth there, Nick.
Yeah, like waving us from the box in Edley Park on a freebie.
Well, I can't imagine a box in Edley Park will be up to much. A ground that's certainly from the ages, isn't it? It was a bizarre entry to the ground. Obviously, we've been there 20 odd years ago, so I don't know if you guys made the same mistake as me, as like going to the away end where you expect to go in at the away turnstiles and got told, oh no, you can't come in the away end. I was like, what do you mean? It's right there. No. Have you not seen the sign? What sign?
What was more surreal was none of the stewards seemed to know how to actually get there, because I'd walked up to the far end, to the railway end, and then was like, how do I get in here? I'm confused. So I walked back to the home end where they've got the big sort of semi-modern stand, and I walked around the other side, and then I was like, well, no, not there. And then I asked 3 separate stewards who were all baffled by the prospect of actually me getting in the ground. It
wasn't like it had like 20 minutes to you're actually at the ground, you're at the away end. Yeah. Oh, no, it's another 20-minute walk. So you've got to go back onto the high street, down the high street a bit more, around this development, and then you have a nice kettling down this alleyway down the back of a new build housing estate with this weird sort of post-industrial steelworks that was rusting, and then a series of checkpoints. It can only be described as, couldn't it? It was fucking weird. Never know anything like it.
John. I quite liked it.
I remember thinking to myself, that Mitch is loving this. If you discarded mattresses and piles of rubbish. And what was even weirder was the ticket ticket check. You didn't actually go through a turnstile.
No,
Just a
there's
couple of
bloke
old boys with handheld scanners.
It was
But
weird,
then
wasn't
again, that's sort of like the mix of that past and future thing. Because like right in the front, it all looked, they had a fan zone going on, and it all looked really sort of well organised, and it felt like there was a bit of money going around the club. And then, like you say, you come around the back, and they've got like a bingo collector checking your ticket.
It's like the captain at the Phoenix Club. Are you affiliated with his walking stick? That's not stopping you. An old boy with a walking stick stopping you from getting into the ground. Weird. And then when you go up the steps, you're like right into the bar straight away. You're right into the action, weren't you? It delivered you straight into where everyone's drinking.
What were those weird fences? Because you came up the steps, and then there was that like that drinking area where you sort of drinking the smoking area, and then there was that weird fences at weird angles. It's like, how do you get into the actual?
It's like the Crystal Maze, wasn't it? It's like, you've got 3 minutes to get in the way end. It was bizarre. I mean, the stewards outside were actually quite pleasant, you know, and there wasn't any issue with anybody not wanting to get searched or anything. But obviously, it was a different story with the ones inside the ground, as we'll come on to talk about.
Those fences as well. They were like just concrete garden fencing with fencing panels that they painted blue, haven't they? It was mental. Yeah, you zigzag in.
It felt a bit like I don't know. I've never been to a football match in Eastern Europe, but it felt a bit like what it must feel like going to a football match in Eastern Europe. It was just ramshackle and weird, and as I say, I did quite enjoy that.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. And then you're out onto the old terracing, weren't you? Then you remember it. It had like a corner bit of terracing where all this weird crystal maze that ended up in a bar was rigged up on, and then out onto the terrace. And as Dave Hart's just said there, thank God it didn't rain. It was an open terrace. But then you're onto these awful seats that are bolted onto old terrace, and you've got bugger all leg room, and everyone was very tightly packed in. And as Nick, as you just said, this dickhead stewards, that can only be the word that can describe them, were really petty. And there was obviously a lot of people stood in the middle section. There's nowhere else for people to go, so obviously people were stood up in the aisles and at the back, and they were just being really like hyper aggressive, throwing people around and everything. So it was pretty uncalled for.
Yeah, it was. Like you say, it's not like people, there was no animosity there. It wasn't people looking to cause trouble, but it was almost like, as far as we're concerned, you're here to cause trouble. And they were just looking for the slightest reason to go piling in and chuck people out. And it wasn't like that. People had a few beers, and I'm not saying our fans are angels, but there wasn't anybody there looking to cause trouble with stewards. And I'll talk about what happened at the end after the match. But at half time, they were marching 3 or 4 people out, and there's people with them just saying they've not done anything. What are you doing? And they just were. It's like you give people a uniform, and they're just on a complete power trip with it. It was causing an issue where there didn't need to be one. Fair enough if someone's being an arse, but nobody was.
Yeah.
And it just
it was a good atmosphere, wasn't it? The sun was shining. Yeah. It was great. It was like almost a spring-like day, and it was great to bask in the actual sun, wasn't it?
Me and Gricey were down at the front. I was just dodging under his Grice Reaper scythe every time he turned around to make a comment. And there was at half time, it was really laid back. The vibe, it was, and I made this jokey comment that they were just knocking a football around. I think County had a shot sort of 2 minutes before half time, and we hadn't given the ball back, and we were knocking a football around. And it was the definition of good, clean fun, as people were just chucking this ball around, and it kept going down the front to some kids, and then the whole crowd would give it the big whoa, and then the kids would throw it up, and everyone would cheer, and the kids were buzzing, and it went right up in the air. And there was a lad walking back from the bar who he trapped as the ball came down. He just sort of went, "Oh, there's the ball." He trapped it. The whole stand went, "Way!" way, and he flicked it up and chipped it back in the crowd, and then everyone went, way, again. And so he walks up to his seat. I carry on talking to Andy. And then about 10 seconds later, we look across, and the stewards have got this lad in a headlock. And it's like, what's that for? You know, because he had a momentary bit of fun. You know, I mean, I know technically you're supposed to return the ball to the field of play, but it was just, there was no harm done. And he'd have been thrown out. But there was a couple of lads. I don't know if he was with them or they've just around him. A couple of lads, he sort of managed to squirm out of the headlock. And there's a couple of lads who literally and they were big lads as well, put themselves between the stewards and him. And about 10 of us all went round the stewards, and it sort of got into this real standoff. And these two lads were like, no, you're not having him. You're not having him. You're going to have to come through us. And they were going, no, he's got to go. And they're going, no, you're not having him. What's he done? If you tell us what he's done. And it was just absurd, because it was just like 5 minutes of aggression and conflict that there was no reason for that at all in any way, shape, or form. Nobody had done anything remotely aggressive. You know, there'd been nothing had endangered anybody else. It was just stupid.
Everyone was just having a good time, weren't they? And yeah, it'd be good to get an actual response from Stockport County about the behaviour of their stewards and their attitude, aggressive and bullying attitude towards Blackpool fans. It was just bang out of order.
Interestingly, I put something on Twitter about it, and I had a Stockport fan sent me a message saying, yeah, they're as bad in the home end as well. We hate them.
Are they?
The club changed their security. He said they've had problems before. They'd made a few years ago, they'd complained to the club. They'd got a firm that had been all right, and then they've changed firms again. It's the last few months. They're the same in the home end, you know, constantly telling people to sit down, looking for the smallest reason to chuck everybody out, walking around like they own the place. So they're not happy with their stewarding either.
So reasons to be cheerful apart from all that. It was a good day out. It was a good laugh. Sun was shining, and Nick, Ashley Fletcher, further brighten the mood very early on the game, 7 minutes in, and he's finished with a plum.
He did, yeah. It was just, I was quite surprised at just how easy it was, really. Morgan's kind of looked up, seen the run, played a ball over the top, and there was just a gap opener, wasn't there? I dare say there'd be an inquest from a Stockport, and I think perhaps looking at maybe could the keeper have come, but he's flicked it over him with a great finish, yeah, and a great start. And 1-0 up, you're thinking, right, you know, certainly that first probably 25 minutes, half an hour, I thought we really controlled the game. And if you didn't know, you know, if you were a neutral and you were just watching the game, you'd probably think it was Blackpool who were in fourth place, because we looked confident, we were stroking it around, we really kind of restricted them. And you're thinking, right, as we have done quite a lot this season, happy days. Kind of this is the good side of Blackpool, the best of Blackpool. Thoroughly deserved it, and you know could have gone 2-0 up. The second chance from Fletch, again another great ball in, and great flick considering how far out he was, and really unlucky. You know that it's just hit the post and gone to the keeper. And we, you know, you couldn't say we wouldn't have deserved it if we'd have gone 2-0 up. So yeah, a really, really bright start.
Mitch, I think we said it on the last pod. Obviously, you weren't on. We were crediting Ash Fletcher with a great turnaround to the season, and those two incidents in that game, and yet another dink, as Bob just said there, and an Ennis moment from Ash Fletcher, and you can kind of sort of see little bits now of why he went for such a hefty price tag once upon a time, and it's great to see from Ash Fletcher, a good turnaround.
Yeah, definitely, and I think probably testament to his turnaround is the fact that when he was sent off last week, we were all, I think most people are actually genuinely concerned about the prospect of him not playing. You know,
it'd be celebration time like 6-8 weeks ago, wouldn't it? Would have been popping the champagne.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, I mean, he was quite literally 6-8 weeks ago, quite literally laughed off the pitch when he was substituted. And yeah, you can, as you say, you can see the quality coming through with a bit of confidence. You know, I mean, he was a figure of fun. He looked comical at the beginning of the season, but he doesn't look like that now. He looks a lot more fluid. He looks a lot more decisive, and yeah, he led the line very well. I mean, obviously, we'll come through into the second half, but I think the one thing I'd say about Fletcher is he does tend to fade. He seems to have it was very similar pattern to the Wrexham game in that I thought Fletcher was excellent at Wrexham, and then second half he might as well not have been playing. And this was a little bit like that in this game. We had a very, very good first half, and then second half you kind of like, is it Fletcher still on the pitch? He sort of disappeared. Now whether that's other teams adjusting and closing him down, or whether it's I don't know. Fitness over 90 minutes, I don't know, but certainly he looks 3 times the player he did at the beginning of the season.
I think we've got to credit Steve Bruce for that as well, because if you remember that time, he's taken him. He's had a quiet word with him. He's put an arm around him, and he's got the best of him. Nick, obviously we've just missed out doing the player lineups, but it was the same as you were from the last game, similar formation. I wouldn't say Blackpool dominated that first half, but it was very comfortable. We were the most attacking side.
Yeah,
look at
I
XG 0.55 to their 0.26, and we went into the first half a goal to the good, and I think it was fully deserved. Obviously, Tyrer's pulled off a worldy, but apart from that, it was comfortable for Blackpool.
Yeah, I think there was another save, wasn't there, where the guys hit it into the ground. But certainly, I thought for large periods of that, we controlled it well. You know, Sonny Carey, I think I've got to give him a shout out as well, was looking to break as well. But for being hacked down cynically a couple of times.
Yeah, they were looking to break his leg, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
It's awful foul.
Every time he seemed to get the ball, there's one of them, flying into him. So yeah, I thought we looked pretty comfortable and pretty confident, and certainly deserved to be going in at halftime a goal to the good. If not, like I say, that chance goes in, and that'd have been deserved as well. So yeah, it was decent. It's just, as we'll come on to talk about, we're not a 90-minute team, are we?
Well, maybe it's if Fletcher's not a 90-minute Fletcher. Maybe that's what we need to do. We need to get a load of Red Bulls into Fletcher at half-time and be all right, because he's obviously the key to everything.
Yeah, I think it applies to quite a few of them, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
For that second half, unfortunately.
Half-time bongs, Nick, a mainstay comment throughout the seasons on this podcast, and we can once again roll it out just 2 minutes in to the second half. Talk us through the goal.
Well, they made
three changes
at half time, didn't they? Yeah, 3 changes, and obviously straight away it's made a difference. I was literally just walking back down the steps on the terrace after a half time pint, and I kind of looked up and ball down the right hand side. It just looks so easy, and he's played it across, and there's just nobody near the lad, and he's only just come on the pitch, hasn't he? And he strokes it home for 1-1, and you're just thinking, oh, come on, Paul. Just how many times have we said, keep it tight for 10 or 15 minutes or 5 minutes, and you know that at half time, 1-0 down when you're 4th in league, they're going to have had probably a bit of a rocket, and come on, lads, we can do something a bit better here. So you're not necessarily going to dominate the second half perhaps the way we did the first, but again, it's just another one where you just think somebody not have stepped up and taken a bit of responsibility. They're kind of looking at each other, and it was just a really, really poor goal to give away for me.
Mitch, what do we put down? What do we put this down to? Can any of you? Can you? It's just a weird mentality. What?
I think the key thing that Stockport did, I'll come to the bigger picture in a second, but I think the key thing that Stockport did was they changed their midfield, and really that second half, they had the grip of the midfield. And for me, what they did showed what we don't have, is we have we have three midfielders who are first team prospects. We're playing all of them. Our other midfielders are Finnegan and Onomer. Then they're not good. I'd be surprised if they play 5 games between them between now and the end of the season, if that. Even if you add up all the sub appearances, if they make 5 games. So we've got 3 midfielders. We're playing all of them. Stockport's midfield wasn't working. I think it was Norwood they took off, if I remember rightly. And I can't remember who they brought
Callum
on.
Camps came on, the ex-Fleetwood player.
Was it Camps who came on? Yeah.
I think he started the goal, didn't he? He set that goal.
Yeah, and he's he's not a bad player, and he's got a bit of presence, and he's quite mobile. And they just freshened and stiffened it up, so to speak. And we can't do that. We haven't got anybody to turn to. Now, that doesn't explain why you concede goals at the beginning of the second half, but what it does perhaps explain is why teams are sometimes able to change the paradigm completely, and we aren't able to really do anything about it, and we aren't able to do the same thing because we just don't have the depth. We're asking the same players to do the same thing every week, particularly in the centre of the park, and that's gonna have an impact eventually. And possibly as well. I mean, I don't know. I'm completely speculating. Possibly it's kind of we're second guessing what the other team will do, or we're going out and we're being thrown by the other team doing something different, or we're not reading the tactical change. I found it odd yesterday because Bruce is normally pretty on it with the tactical change. He's normally pretty quick. Normally, as soon as I start thinking, "Oh, we're losing this," you look across and he's got 2 subs up, and you think, "All right, he's there." But it was kind of odd that he didn't really adjust. I mean, you wouldn't expect him to adjust on 46 minutes, but it dragged on and on and on, and he didn't really do anything about it. And I thought that was odd yesterday. I don't know if I've really answered the question. The answer is I don't know.
I think, like you say, it's those 3 midfielders. They're all very good at some of the things they do, but none of them are the person who's going to go, right, they're getting a grip of this, I'm going to step up and do something about it. We don't have that player, and that's what we're probably missing from the January window. Now, maybe the right one wasn't available, and it's something for the summer, fair enough. But there isn't that person just to go, right, they're number 4, starting to run the show a bit. He's my man. We don't have that in Evans, Carey, or Morgan, unfortunately. So I suppose it's going to happen. Maybe you could say, could he have stuck Baggett on and maybe, shored it up at the back a little bit more, perhaps? Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but you could just see it coming as the half went on. I mean, we'll come on to our chances. We had 2 brilliant chances in that half, but you still felt like they're getting on top of this. You could see it happening.
I think Tony Lawson's just made the comment there that there's no, sorry, John, I know you're starting, but no real leader anywhere on that pitch. And that's part of it as well. It's not just we don't have that sort of dynamic, tough tackling midfielder. We don't really have somebody who's going to get them all round, get into them and sort of, fist pumping and
organise them a bit.
Yeah.
Big Dogs just said Hubby is poor captain. It's the captain's fault for not rallying his players. What do we feel about that?
I think. I mean, look, my natural inclination is to defend Jim. Jimmy Husband could shoot 3 people on my street in right in front of me, and I'd probably still stick up for him. But I think there's probably some truth in that Jimmy is a quieter leader than the traditional captain. That's a tactful way of putting it. But you go back to our last promotion side or the championship side, and you had Jerry, who was basically like jumping up and down ADHD style, clapping his hands. He was always setting a rhythm. You had Big Gaz, who was certainly a leader of men. You had Dougal, who probably more lead by example, but was a completely and utterly wholehearted kind of midfielder. You had Keogh pointing, shouting, talking. You had obviously Marvin was actually the captain. who, you know, he wasn't necessarily the most vocal captain in the world, but he was certainly capable of a shout and a bit of leadership. And then you had Maxwell wasn't quiet either. You know, Maxwell was a real talker and an organizer as well. And there was a real spine of voices in that side. There was a real spine of sort of leaders and shouters. And now really we've got sort of Evans throws his arms in the air when anything goes wrong and shouts at people. Hubby sort of puts his arm around somebody every now and again and has a word in their ear. And other than that, you don't really see them talking to each other, do you? You know, I mean, go back to that championship side when Keogh used to get the whole defence together, and they used to do this little defensive drill before the game, this little psyching each other up before each half. You don't see any of that now, do you?
No.
Yeah, interesting points. Nick, obviously you mentioned, just going back to their equaliser. You mentioned Ennis has had a couple of chances. Let's discuss the first one. Point blank header from a great ball from Coulson, and Ennis can go anywhere apart from straight at the goal, and it's a goal. And you've got to be putting chances like that away.
Yeah, well, I think you could say it for both of them, couldn't you? Certainly between those two chances, one of them needs to hit the back of the net. I mean, I thought, you know, it came in quite quickly, and he ran onto it, got a decent connection. And I think anywhere else and it goes in, you could say it's a decent save, but from that sort of range, you're probably thinking it's going to hit the back of the net, and you can't quite believe that it hasn't. And like you say, it was a great ball. Coulson won it, went forward, got his head up, and played a great ball into the back post. And you know, he's scoring goals for us, Ennis. It's not like it's not happening for him. He's getting into the positions, but yeah, a little bit disappointing. But I thought of the two, I thought the second one was probably the one where he should have probably not even given the keeper a chance to make the save. It was Morgan, wasn't it, who's picked him out there again with a great ball. And yeah, for me, he just needs to put it either side of the keeper. Really, that was the one for me where I just thought you've got to score there.
Yeah, I was right on the first one. It was kind of right in line where I was, and I actually thought he did quite well to twist himself and get a sort of square on contact with it. But I think the second one you'd be disappointed with.
Just going back to the Bruce substitutions, Mitch, you just mentioned it previously. I put in my notes. Stockport dominant. CJ needs hooking. I noticed a couple of people in the comments were saying that. Craig saying CJ pretending to track back. Watching CJ trotting back could pressure or score for lazy. But it was obvious that was where you had to make the change. And if you're Jordan Gabriel and you're not coming on in that situation, he's the ideal player to come on there. That's his specialist position, and you've got to be thinking, where's my future if I'm not coming on in this kind of game in that position?
Well, there was a lad just up the road from me, literally as they were coming out for the second half, went, do you know what? I wouldn't mind seeing Gabe's this half. And sort of called it even before they kicked off. And it was a bit of Nostradamus from him, because the CJ was almost a bellwether for the crowd mood, because first half, when CJ was doing his questionable defensive work, we were sort of giving him slightly patronising cheers when he'd sort of managed to head something or had cleared something. It's sort of like, it was like encouragement at sports day, that kind of thing. And then second half, when obviously they were putting the pressure on, people lost the patience with it, because regardless of mentality, he just isn't good enough to do that. He's not good enough. We had an entire season last year of going, CJ's not a wing back. He can play wing back when we're on top. If we're galloping forward all game, he's fine.
And against a shit team. Against a shit team,
galloping forward against a shit fullback that's slow, he'll look like a world-class player in that context. But against Stockport, who actually had some, they weren't world-class by any means, but they had some, pretty decent players. And certainly second half, they were very purposeful in what they did. He's out of his depth. He's not a defender in any way, shape or form. He just isn't. and that just because he can run quickly doesn't make up for his deficits in his tackling ability, his heading ability, and his positional, his positional weaknesses as a defender. So, yeah, I agree completely. It was quite strange. I mean, me and Gricey were saying, go to back four, just get to a back four. And eventually did, but it took, was it about 65 minutes to sub, something like that?
71.
71. It was even longer than I thought then.
I think they were stood there from about 60. It seemed to take forever for them to
it was weird, wasn't it? It was weird, Nick. Yeah. Apter for Fletcher, Silvera for CJ, 71 minutes. I've just penned, it looked like we could hold the ball for more than 3 seconds. It wasn't an immediate impact, but it did provide a bit of respite from the, I wouldn't say relentless Stockport attacks, but it was a lot of Stockport pressure. So, Nick, as Mitch said previously, he has read the game, Steve Bruce, in previous situations and adjusted it, but I think he was a tad too late with these substitutions. Worldy the right subs as well.
Yeah, maybe 10 minutes. But like I say, I think they were stood there for a good 5 or 6 minutes actually waiting to come on. But it probably should have happened sooner. And like you say, it looked at least then for a little bit like just somebody hold the ball for a little bit. We literally we're losing it every 2 seconds prior to that, and you can't do that and expect to hang on against, not world beaters, but the fourth, aren't they? And they've got a very decent home record. I think last Saturday was the first defeat at Cambridge, was the first defeat in 8 or something like that. So, you're going to have a difficult time at some point, and we just weren't holding on to the ball at all.
Stockport have had a 19-year-old lad, an Icelandic international, Bernie Andersson or something. He scored the first, Mitch, and then the second goal. And again, another preventable goal, very soft goal, ball into the box, standard stuff. Hubby's lost his man. The cross, it's arguably shouldn't have come in the first place. I think it was Camps. Was it Camps who put it in? I've just watched back on the replay, and he wasn't tracked either. So it was a soft goal, really. It was a soft goal. It was a bog standard goal, and one we shouldn't have really conceded. Just switching off again.
Yeah, it was, and I think that's probably what made it really quite a deflating afternoon. In we'd played really well, and then we lost the game. We lost the game to 2 soft goals, and actually they did have a lot of pressure. But when I thought back, they didn't actually do a hell of a lot with it, other than score 2 goals. We didn't have. Tyrer did make a couple of good saves in the first half, but Tyrer wasn't flying all around his goal and tipping him over left, right, and centre. And there weren't sort of loads of last, off the line clearances and stuff. It almost. It was a goal that came to that point where we'd been under a lot of pressure, and I'd been thinking, the second one's coming. And then we'd played moderately better for 6, 7, 8 minutes. And I just started to do that deadly thing of thinking, you never know, we might win this. And then obviously they scored. And what I will say is what a good header it was from him. It was just beautifully cushioned into that corner, just into the sort of that little gap where Tyrer couldn't get to it. I really did. It really was. You know how much I like a nice header. I don't like a nice header for the other team, but I have to give a shout out to the quality of that header. And it also maybe spoke of the kind of goals that we don't ever really seem to score. We never seem to score from like a simple cross into the box and a really nicely aimed header like that.
No. And Nick, I think that was the off switch on our season, that goal. When that goal went in, you sort of knew we weren't getting back into that game. It was like, as Tim mentioned, our promotion hopes, our playoff hopes were just a flickering pilot light. And I think that goal going in was someone going, blowing it out.
I think
that was it.
Yeah, I think it's a little burning ember at best now. But going back to the goal, I think the run from the number 8 not being tracked was absolutely criminal. Just nobody.
I think it was actually Morgan, Nick, and I don't want to dig Morgan out because he was superb. But again, this boils back to our lack of squad depth that he had to stay on. He probably should have been taken off after 75 because he's put sort of bad shift in. So I'm not going to dig him out. But yeah, you are right to not have him tracked criminal.
I would say,
and just picking up the comment that was made, it definitely was hubby ball watching. I wasn't avoiding. I'm not that obsessed with Jimmy that I was avoiding saying. It's just John had already said that hubby was ball watching. It was hubby ball watching, and there's something almost sort of symbolic about the way the season ends with a routine goal with Jimmy, who is I love Jimmy to bits for what he's done for the club, but should he really be first pick every week in every possible circumstance? Probably not. It probably says quite a lot about the strength of our squad overall that husband is sort of number one name, or one of the number one names on the team sheet every single week, no matter what. And we don't really have any cover for him at left back, and it probably says more about the squad situation, I think, than it does anything else. Anyway, sorry, Nick, you were speaking.
No, you're fine. I was just going to say, actually, going back probably 20 seconds before that, I thought it was a foul on Evans in the first place, and from I think it was Owen Moxon, but it was really high.
Nick, sorry just to be the second person to interrupt you. Just before this, I've been watching that challenge. Stockport's got extended highlights on their YouTube channel. I was watching the whole thing. I was saying to Eddie, I said, is it really a foul? I was watched it back, and he said, watch it on 0.25 speed. I said, that's a good idea. So I've just watched it, and it's not a foul.
Is it not?
No.
Well,
Evans has got this thing when he tumbles forward about 7 times to make it look like a foul.
I wasn't watching it at 0.25 speed.
We're at the ground. We're all up in arms. A foul, aren't we?
I just thought he'd gone over the top, and I mean, all right, fair play then, because I thought, how's the ref let that go when he was so quick to jump on him? I mean, it doesn't excuse then. There's a lot to happen from that point to the ball hitting the back of the net, and it doesn't excuse what went on for the goal. But I think it just that game is probably the way the two halves went. It's probably a microcosm of the whole season, isn't it? Where we've done some decent stuff, but some really poor stuff, and come up short, which is why we will probably finish round about where we are at the moment. We're not able to have that bit of quality to get in the top 6 and stay around it. So it's sort of summed the season up, really, for me.
I think also one thing we've not talked about is the fact we've gone with the 3-5-2, 5-3-2, whatever you want to call it. And that also kind of sums up the season in the sense that it feels like it sums up the last few years in a way. And it feels like as if we've tried something in the hope that it'll work, and it's not really quite worked out because we haven't quite got, we as it turns out, we haven't quite got the personnel to do that. So next week we'll try something else in the hope that we've got the right personnel. And that sort of is almost like our last 3 years of the club in a nutshell for me, as we keep moving from one thing to another, but never quite having the quality to make any of those things that we do work. And sort of yesterday was kind of that. But it's sort of interesting, isn't it? We've gone back to 2 games. Pardon me. We've gone back for 2 games to like a critch ball setup. We've won at home and we've lost away after the last God knows how many months of not playing critchly stuff. Well, we can't win at home, but we can win away. So, where we go, we're right back where we began.
But Bruce's critch ball isn't as dour as Critchley's critch ball, is it? So, reasons to be cheerful. There we go.
Yeah, I think it's Bruce inherited a Critchley squad, didn't he? And he was never gonna solve it in a January transfer window. It was always going to take at least 2. So I think there's reasons to be optimistic and hopeful that he probably knows where we're still short and what we need, and there's probably more chance of him being able to do something about it in the summer than in a January window. But we've just got to see the rest of the season out now, haven't we?
Suffer the rest of the season.
In fact, should we turn the off switch on this?
If we beat Peterborough tomorrow, the pilot light is back on.
Well, I'm actually having a new boiler fitted on Friday, so that might be the symbolic admission.
It's a sign. It's a sign.
It's a sign, yeah. After months of trying to fix me boiler, having people tinker with trying to fix me boiler, I thought, sack it off, rip it out, put a new one in because I'm fed up with this. So maybe that is a metaphor for what we need.
Is a new boiler.
Yeah, sack it off, rip it all out, start again.
Right, let's move on to player ratings then. Fill a bit of time. I'm pretty sure we'll get under an hour, Nick. Okay. I'll do one as well because there's only three of us in there. Nick, you start with Harry Tyrer. 2 top draw saves in the first half and no chance for both goals.
Yeah, that's it. There wasn't much he could do about either of the goals. They were both well taken, and it wasn't his fault what transpired for those. He did make a couple of very good saves. I will give him an 8.
Mitch, Adele, a fire. There's a lot of people saying he came in for a lot. He was maybe at fault for the first goal. I don't know. He had a really good game for me. Just the odd slip, but
I thought he wasn't up to it. I thought he wasn't. I mean, he's got very high standards, hasn't he? He's definitely a player. He'll at minimum be a championship player at minimum. But I don't think he was at quite his best yesterday. He seemed to be recovering quite a lot yesterday, and he is. I'm waffling, aren't I? Nick's clock's ticking, but he is a player that recovers very well, but he was recovering things more often than I'd like. On Saturday, I can't remember if he was at fault for one of the goals or not. I honestly can't remember, but I remember thinking he doesn't look as assured as he normally does. So I'm going to go for, if Tyrer is an 8, I will go for oh my god, I've forgotten the FPS. 6 plus.
I think
that's it. I nearly said it the wrong way around. Yeah.
You are right, and I think it's because he was overexposed down the right hand side by what was in front of him. So he was kind of just scurrying around, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Just, oh shit, I better deal with that. I've got to deal with that. Yeah. Yeah, Nick, over to you then. Ollie Casey, one magnificent block in the first half that left him poleaxed, if you remember.
Yeah, and was it not him for the first goal? I think on the right hand side. I'll give him the same score as Mr. Afire using the FPRS.
Over to you, Mitch. Jimmy, not his best games, and don't even remember right at the end. More or less with our last attack, he was going down the left.
Yeah,
could have forced a corner, could have got a cross in, and then just threw himself to the floor to try and get a foul. I thought it was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. It was really frustrating. It was a very Jimmy thing to do, wasn't it?
It looked like he'd given up on life at that point.
Yeah.
Like it's like everything had run out, and all he could do is just fall over.
Did you hear him go as well? You heard him like try to buy the foul.
Forrest Gump coming to the end of end of his run finally, and just going down. Yeah, no, Jimbo wasn't good. Where do we go with Jimbo?
5 plus for me.
No, I was going to go a little bit lower than that for him.
Yeah, that's just my opinion. 5 minus. Yeah, I think that's fair. Nick, we've got Hern Coulson there. Who did Coulson replace?
I think you can jump in and do this one if you want, John.
I'll get the starting lineup. Did Coulson? Yeah, Coulson played, didn't he?
What
What mean about?
Same team.
No, I can't do 2 things at the same time, Nick. Sorry,
I think it's confused you because you've got it set up as a 4-4-2.
That's right. Yeah,
3-5-2. Coulson was outside.
Yeah. Thought Coulson was one of the better of the defensive line.
Yeah, like I say, he put that decent ball in for Ennis's first header. He likes to get forward. He certainly gives us something, going forward. I'll give him a 7.
Sonny Carey, Mitch, nearly crippled twice in the first half. You can't knock his effort whatsoever. What about his?
No, you can't. I think he struggled second half. I think he didn't really impact the game second half. I thought first half he looked excellent. I mean, me and Nick had a brief conversation at half time about just, Carey's looking great, isn't he? He's looking really purposeful and decisive, but he sort of got lost in the second half. I can't really remember anything he did. I played one really nice ball second half, little sort of scoop pass over the top, and that was pretty much all I can remember. Oh, he played squared it for Morgan, didn't he? Sort of chucked himself in and squared it for Morgan. But beyond those couple of moments, I don't think he had much impact. So, Sonny, what if you just give him Coulson 7? I'll go 6+ for Sonny then.
I was thinking 6+. Nick, Lee Evans, a very mixed bag. One thing I said was I'm sick of him doing a Hollywood ball with every pass and booked again, which kind of tempers his just silly booking as well. So
yeah, he has got that in him, hasn't he? And I also thought his set piece delivery wasn't as good, certainly as it had been earlier in the season, which was, a massive part of his game for us. It's just every time, all of a sudden, we looked dangerous from corners and free kicks, didn't we? With Evans' pinpoint delivery, and that wasn't really on point on Saturday either. So it's another one where I thought in the first half we had a good tempo, quite a lot was going through him. We were controlling it, and he was a big part of that. But again, second half just gone missing a little bit, really. So I'm going to say 6.
Mitch Albie Morgan, the pick of the crop on Fat Mob. He scored 7.9. What's that?
For me, by a mile, he was man of the match. I thought he had a really, really good game, and he's looked a little bit off it in a couple of games recently as Morgs. I thought he was really, really good. I thought he was busy. He was industrious. The quality of I think he probably, if we had 4 chances, he certainly set up 3 of them, and he was in the move for the 4th. I thought his passing was crisp, it was direct, it was inventive, it was quick, it was first time, and he was getting around the pitch, nipping in, intercepting, disrupting play. I thought he was excellent. I'd give him an 8+.
Yeah, I'd agree. For me, he's my player of the season this year.
I think he's close to. Yeah, I think him or Casey of our own players.
Yeah, and we've mentioned the midfield 3. They all good, great first half. Maybe not so Evans, but Morgan and Carey, they've got no one to come on for them, and I think that's where we're falling down. The lack of strength in depth, and Morgan not tracking Camps back, but he's absolutely knackered from the shift he's put in. So not his fault. It's a fault of the squad and the squad that's been put together. Right, CJ Hamilton. This is going to be an interesting one. Nick, is it you?
Yeah, it is. Like we said, we're asking him to play wing back, and it's not something that he's very good at. If he's in a 4 as a winger and he's got space to run into, great. But asking him to do that other side of it, he just has not got it in him. So you could say there's a degree of sympathy there, but at the same time, I don't know. I think it's. Do I go below a 5?
I was teetering on 5. I was thinking 5.
Yeah,
5,
I'll go. I'll do it. I'll use the FPRS and I'll do a 5-.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Right, up top, Mitch, Ash Fletcher, 2 moments of pure class in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, I've already said it, haven't I? I thought for first 45, I thought it was absolutely excellent. He had those 2 moments we've talked about, and he had some really nice link play, came deep. What I like about him is for a big lad, he can be really comfortable when he picks it up wide and runs with it and cuts inside, and a couple of times showed really nice feet and beat someone. I thought, yeah, excellent. What a player. If he played like that all the time, then he would definitely be playing championship football at the very least. Disappeared completely second half for me, didn't really impose himself on the second half at all, but nonetheless had a big impact on the game, a positive impact on the game. So if I've given Morgs 8+ and we gave Tyrer 8, then I think Fletcher I'll give an 8.
Sounds fair. Finally, Nick, Ennis, unfortunately it wasn't away again.
It wasn't, and it probably should have been. It's like we could easily have been talking about another brace and going back to the Crawley game where it should have been 3 if not 4, but it wasn't. And this is another one where he's had two very good chances where you think we should at least be putting one of them away. He puts himself about. He's got great touch in and around the box. He's quick, and he's getting into the positions. But one of those should have probably hit the back of the net. So I'm going to say 7.
Can I just say a quick thing on Ennis? I was having a look on Fotmore Ball, who scored at one of those sites of the day, and his actual position is listed as attacker left-sided rather than as a striker, which I thought was kind of interesting because I've noticed how good he is technically sometimes when he comes with the ball and how well he's actually really good when he picks the ball up deep, and he's got a real set of tricks on him, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And maybe he isn't the number 9 that we all think. I don't know. I don't know where he played for Plymouth in the season where he went up, whether he was sort of wide of a big man. I can't really remember, or whether he was in the middle.
Yeah.
Man of the match, gents. I think there's only one contender for me. Albie Morgan every day of the week.
Yeah,
contenders,
same for me. Yeah, no, same for me. Albie Morgan.
Yeah,
and
I'd
then
agree.
after that, possibly Tyrer, but he's clear out in front for me.
Yeah,
I would. I think pretty much he's the one player that played well all the way through.
Yeah. Over to manager rating now. Couple of blots on the copybook for me. Firstly, playing CJ as right wing back when you've got a specialist on the bench, Jordan Gabriel, and also didn't make the changes quick enough to affect the game. So 7- for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree with what you say, but I'd go back to what I said earlier. I mean, I about them having the player to make a change, and I don't know whether Bruce was. I don't know whether he possibly looked at it and thought, "Yeah, we need to get some bite into that midfield," and then looked at his bench and kind of thought, "How the hell do I do that?" And then eventually came up with it was quite a weird formation he came up with.
Was it 5 in the midfield? And we know we made
Yeah,
those changes.
It looked like a 4-5-1, didn't it?
Yeah.
It looked like a 4-5-1 with sort of Carey as the link player again, and it sort of worked. And you have to wonder, not to overplay this point, you have to wonder if we'd have had I don't know, Keith Southern on the bench or something. If after 52 minutes it had just gone, right, Keith, get up, get on there, go around, tackle, disrupt. But we don't. We've got Josh Onomer who's half asleep and nobody else. So yeah, I don't know, whether it's what he didn't have versus what it's a long-winded way of saying I'll give him 7. No, 7-. Yeah, I'll agree with you.
I'll go 7. I think 7. I think, like you say, could have maybe made the subs a little bit sooner, but there's only so much of a silk purse you can make out, isn't it? When there probably isn't the players on the bench to bring on to really do what you want to do.
And finally, fan rating. Whoever came up with, I'll just add a bit of context to what I'm going to say here. If you've never been to Stockport, it's over the flight path of Manchester Airport, right over the runway, and there's a series of jetliners coming over your head every 5 minutes, landing at the airport. And whoever came up with a Jet 2, ole, 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 Jet 2 again, ole, ole. Brilliant. I doff my cap. Hilarious.
Yeah,
it was like the good old days, wasn't it, on the terraces? So yeah, that was it. Jet 2 again, ole, ole, big dog. Yeah, did make me chuckle that. Right, season over, gents. Season over.
Just quickly, John, before we move
Yep.
on to quickly looking at Peterborough. So we mentioned stewards early. So at the end, we went out at the end where the toilets were, and there was kind of 2 lots of big metal gates. They were open initially, so people started to filter out, and then they decided to shut them as people were going through them. So people got knocked back. I think there was people just in front of us who were all together. I don't know if it was family or not, but there's people who got through, and others were just shut in then, and they just weren't for opening the gates. So people start shouting and shoving and pushing. Then all of those stewards from behind the goal who'd been spoiling for it all game came flying in, and start pushing people back. And again, it's not people looking for a fight or looking to cause trouble. It's literally, what are you doing? You've just created a problem that wasn't there. And then a whole pushing and shoving match with people trying to get the gates open. They got forced open and loads of people went piling out. They got shut, tried to be shut again. Then the police have come in. I think they ended up protecting the stewards because people were just going mad at him because of what they'd done. And it's just a complete flashpoint of a situation that did not need to happen. People were going absolutely mad at them. And it's obviously built up from what's gone on during the game as well. Again, where it's just like, you've gone flying in, mate. Just open the gates and nobody's going to come running out looking for Stockport fans or anything. There's not any animosity. You know, it's not a rival. We've not been there for 20 years. But there was plenty of police about in the street. You know, they could have dealt with it. And I actually heard one. Well, I think it was one of the Blackpool coppers said to him, "You can't do that. What are you doing? Shutting the gates on people." You know, it could have been a lot worse than it was, and it just gets people riled up, and it's completely unnecessary. So, I think the Stockport fan has posted on the View from the Tower to say, you mentioned earlier that they've had issues. I think they treat Birmingham fans the same. So, we're just encouraging, I think, you know, like the SLO or whoever to put something into Stockport because, it was not. People say, oh, you know, if you don't go looking for trouble, you won't find it. It wasn't people looking for trouble. Absolutely not. Completely unnecessary. And it just leaves a sour taste because it's, like I say, it did not need to happen.
Yeah, let's hope if Steve Rowland, if you're listening to this, get onto them. Get some liaising done. Right, 56 minutes. I'm sure we can whittle through a look ahead to Peterborough tomorrow. Tuesday night. Anyone asked anymore?
Why? I think
I have been thinking, can I be asked going to this? Eddie doesn't want to go.
We were playing until I looked online. Yeah, somebody were playing. Oh no! There we go.
It's getting to the punch clock attendance now, isn't it? Like punching your card in, you've got to go put the hours in.
It was interesting. I was thinking, like, you know, are there any players that we haven't seen that we might see? You know, are there any kids on there, or are there any fringe players who've got a question? Well, the only thing I can think of any interest is maybe Andy Lyons will get back fit and play some games. It's just there's just nothing, is there, really, beyond that first sort of 12, 13 players that would excite you.
It'd be all right if you were sat in the West because you could give what's his name a bit of stick. Alex Ferguson's son, Darren Ferguson. Yeah, that might be a bit of a pastime, kill a bit of time. But yeah, apart from that,
we'll be there. You know you will.
We will.
Don't think Blocks will be back tomorrow, David.
No, I think it's penciled in for Barnsley, hopefully, isn't it?
Yeah. I've asked his agent, and he said hopefully Barnsley. That again, Barnsley away would have been a good away game had we been up there. Yeah. Anyone going to that? I was going to go, not now.
No, I don't think I am.
Not unfortunately. What I do.
A lot of people in the comments saying crowd 8,500, lowest attendance of the season tomorrow night. I think you're right, MB. I think it will.
Might even be a bit lower than that.
I think.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
They're not going to bring many, are they?
No, probably 200-300 from Peterborough, and you know a lot of exiles can't always make it for night games. I mean, they'll announce it based on season tickets as well, won't they? But they won't all necessarily be there. But you know, ever the optimist. So match predictions. I'm going to go.
Probably win. We'll probably have a good win tomorrow.
We will, like I say, you know, and then you start looking at it. It's only 9 points.
A hat trick each for Jeff Donovan and Jake Beasley.
Film, you know, where you think the bad guy's dead, and then they come back to him and he's gone. Oh, there's a little flicker of light. Somebody think, oh, there's going to be a sequel there. You never know.
Are you saying the spectre of promotion is haunting us like Freddy Krueger?
Yeah, Michael Myers, Halloween 14. Yeah. No, it's not going to happen. I mean, I had a look at the table before, and it's just you don't see enough of the teams above us, even if we're on a run, you know, dropping enough points.
No,
that's the thing. it's not. No, it's not going to happen.
It's
But
done.
you know, we'll still be positive, and I'm going to go 3-0 Pool.
The hand that comes out of the grave. Or the T1000 when it gets melted down, but then
Yeah, that's what I mean. And the
little bits
the
of
light
it
comes
reform,
back on
don't they?
in its eye.
Bison says 4-1.
Oh,
Ever the optimist is our Bisons.
yeah. Point out that that's to Peterborough, not Blackpool.
Yeah, 1-4. Sorry. Yeah. I think we're going to put on a show and we're going to win 3-1. They're pretty shit away from home, so just to further taunt us, we're going to win 3-1.
I think it's going to be a fairly unsatisfying 2-1 win.
And on that note, start playing the outro music. I don't think we're going to be doing a midweek show. Probably not much point. Although if we win,
Can't believe you're not channeling the enthusiasm that's.
Yeah, David, pressure off 3-0. Right, we'll be back next Monday anyway. If you are watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a rating, 5-star rating and like and all that bollocks. We do have oh no, the music's ending, so I'll just say goodbye. Thanks for watching. Thanks for downloading. Thanks, gents, and up the pool.
Up the pool.
Been involved in 2. Can he make 3? Not on this occasion. Well taken by Walsh. Davis is on the far side. Ainsko coming square. That's the ball. That's a good try.